There we go. All right, guys. Sorry about that. So, look, welcome to another new Training Tuesday. And like I say, today we're going to do something a little bit different. What we're going to do is I'm going to do the first part of the presentation, and then we're going to introduce a special guest presenter who's going to go ahead and do the back half on a totally different subject. But what are we going to talk about today? What am I going to talk about more specifically, I suppose? Well, I want to spend a bit of time today and talk to you about balance. Not obviously balance as it pertains to our system, but specifically more about work-life balance. Because a lot of times within our own lives, and also when we're working with clients as well, depending on the job or career that that individual is in, it makes it very challenging to go ahead and really try to come up with or design your life in such a way that you have enough balance. You're at somebody else's demand. A lot of your time is monopolized by your employer, so it's not always an easy thing to do. And also, when you're working with clients, it's not always to identify a proper solution for them because people have got responsibilities, they've got commitments to their employer, and things of that nature. So, what I want to do is I want to introduce you to Nigel Marsh. Nigel Marsh he's an interesting guy. He's an Australian writer. And the reason I actually selected him today is I like his story. It has a lot of similarities to myself. Nigel he wasn't self-employed, but he classified himself as a corporate warrior. Primarily, he was a very successful guy in the corporate sector. Worked extremely hard. Rose in the ranks, and when he was middle age, he started to realize that his life wasn't very balanced. That he wasn't in great health. His relationships were suffering, so he decided to make some changes. And he's written a few books. And what I like about his books, and I like about his presentation style, is he adds in a good bit of humor into it as well. He makes light of it, but there's a lot of similarities about what he speaks about and what we're doing here at OneSource. And one of my primary goals is when I look at different strategies and techniques and what other professionals are doing, is I like to try to identify what's working for some, see if we can either incorporate it or if maybe we already have incorporated it. So what I want to do is I'm going to share a TED Talk. It's about 10 minutes. Then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to go ahead and talk about it and do a comparison, kind of how it actually, I suppose, fits into what we're doing here, what he speaks about. And then we're going to go ahead, we're going to introduce Sean, and Sean is going to do his presentation. But I'm going to pre-warn everybody, Sean is doing a presentation today, but I'm going to start putting a bit more pressure on the group for people to go ahead and to step up and do some presentations, because I really think it's important for your own personal growth that you get comfortable presenting. And again, it's always nice to get a fresh set of eyes on things. You guys have all been doing this long enough now that I value what you have to say, and I have no doubt you have a lot of interesting concepts and input that you can share with the group. So I would like to see some more people, even if they're short presentations. I would definitely like to see more people stepping up. But anyway, we'll get into that a little bit as we progress here. But now what I want to do is I want to share the TED Talk there that Nigel did. And hopefully you'll enjoy it. Like I say, it says 13 minutes there, but I must have actually didn't edit out the last bit because I know it's only about 10 minutes long.
what I thought I would do is I would start with a simple request. I'd like all of you to pause for a moment, you wretched weaklings, and take stock of your miserable existence. Now, that was the advice that St. Benedict gave his rather startled followers in the 5th century. And it was the advice that I decided to follow myself when I turned 40. Up until that moment, I had been that classic corporate warrior. I was eating too much, I was drinking too much, I was working too hard, and I was neglecting the family. And I decided that I would try and turn my life around. In particular, I decided I would try to address the thorny issue of work-life balance. So I stepped back from the workforce and I spent a year at home with my wife and 4 young children. But all I learned about work-life balance from that year was that I found it quite easy to balance work and life when I didn't have any work. Not a very useful skill, especially when the money runs out. So I went back to work, and I've spent the 7 years since struggling with, studying, and writing about work-life balance. And I have 4 observations I'd like to share with you today. The first is, if society is to make any progress on this issue, we need an honest debate. But the trouble is, so many people talk so much rubbish about work-life balance. All the discussions about flexi time or dress-down Fridays or paternity leave only serve to mask the core issue, which is that certain job and career choices are fundamentally incompatible with being meaningfully engaged on a day-to-day basis with a young family. Now, the first step in solving any problem is acknowledging the reality of the situation you're in. And the reality of the society that we're in is there are thousands and thousands of people out there leading lives of quiet, screaming desperation, where they work long, hard hours at jobs they hate to enable them to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like. And it's my contention that going to work on a Friday in jeans and t-shirt isn't really getting to the nub of the issue. The second observation I'd like to make is we need to face the truth that governments and corporations aren't going to solve this issue for us. We should stop looking outside. It's up to us as individuals to take control and responsibility for the type of lives that we want to lead. If you don't design your life, someone else will design it for you, and you may just not like their idea of balance. It's particularly important, this isn't on the World Wide Web, is it? I'm about to get fired. It's particularly important that you never put the quality of your life in the hands of a commercial corporation. Now, I'm not talking here just about the bad companies, the abattoirs of the human soul, as I call them. I'm talking about all companies, because commercial companies are inherently designed to get as much out of you as they can get away with. It's in their nature, it's in their DNA, it's what they do, even the good, well-intentioned companies. On the one hand, putting childcare facilities in the workplace is wonderful and enlightened. On the other hand, it's a nightmare that just means you spend more time at the bloody office. We have to be responsible for setting and enforcing the boundaries that we want in our life. The third observation is we have to be careful with the time frame that we choose upon which to judge our balance. Before I went back to work, after my year at home, I sat down and I wrote out a detailed, step-by-step description of the ideal balanced day that I aspired to. And it went like this. Wake up well rested after a good night's sleep. Have sex. walk the dog, have breakfast with my wife and children, have sex again. Drive the kids to school on the way to the office. Do 3 hours work, play sport with a friend at lunchtime. Do another 3 hours work. Meet some mates in the pub for an early evening drink. Drive home for dinner with my wife and kids. Meditate for half an hour. Have sex. Walk the dog. Have sex again. Go to bed. How often do you think I had that day? We need to be realistic. You can't do it all in one day. We need to elongate the time frame upon which we judge the balance in our life. But we need to elongate it without falling into the trap of the I'll have a life when I retire. When my kids have left home, when my wife has divorced me, my health is failing, I've got no mates or interests left. A day is too short, after I retire is too long. There's got to be a middle way. A fourth observation, we need to approach balance in a balanced way. A friend came to see me last year, and she doesn't mind me telling the story. A friend came to see me last year and said, Nigel, I've read your book and I realised that my life is completely out of balance. It's totally dominated by work. I work 10 hours a day, I commute 2 hours a day. All my relationships have failed. There's nothing in my life apart from my work. So I've decided to get a grip and sort it out. So I've joined a gym. Now, I don't mean to mock, but being a fit 10-hour-a-day office rat isn't more balanced, it's more fit. Lovely, though physical exercise may be, there are other parts to life. There's the intellectual side, there's the emotional side, there's the spiritual side. And to be balanced, I believe we have to attend to all of those areas, not just do 50 stomach crunches. Now, that can be daunting, because people say, bloody hell, mate, I haven't got time to get fit. You want me to go to church and call my mother? And I understand, I truly understand how that can be daunting. But an incident that happened a couple of years ago gave me a new perspective. My wife, who is somewhere in the audience today, called me up at the office and said, Nigel, you need to pick our younger son up, Harry, from school. She had to be somewhere else with the other 3 children for that evening. So I left work an hour early that afternoon and picked Harry up at the school gates. We walked down to the local park, messed around on the swings, played some silly games. I then walked him up the hill to the local cafe and we shared a pizza for tea. Then walked down the hill to our home and I gave him his bath and put him in his Batman pyjamas. I then read him a chapter of Roald Dahl's James and the Giant Peach. I then put him to bed, tucked him in, gave him a kiss on his forehead and said, good night, mate, and walked out of his bedroom. As I was walking out of his bedroom, he said, Dad? I went, yes, mate. He went, Dad, this has been the best day of my life. Ever. Oh, I hadn't done anything. Hadn't taken him to Disney World or bought him a PlayStation. Now, my point is, the small things matter. Being more balanced doesn't mean dramatic upheaval in your life. With the smallest investment in the right places, you can radically transform the quality of your relationships and the quality of your life. Moreover, I think it can transform society. Because if enough people do it, we can change society's definition of success. Away from the moronically simplistic notion that the person with the most money when he dies wins, to a more thoughtful and balanced definition of what a life well lived looks like. And that, I think, is an idea worth spreading.
Okay, so that's Nigel for you. Now, I like his perspective on things, and we're going to spend a few minutes there before I introduce Sean to talk about it. But sorry. There we go. So primarily, if you look at a lot of what he says, right, I'm going to talk about his four observations. Um, they 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 tend to fit very well with what we do. I did enjoy the fact that his story, his introduction, when he talked about when he took a year off, and he made the point that yeah, work-life balance is very easy when you don't have work, and it's very true. Life is very easy, to balance if you don't have if I mean work-life balance is like the comic says there is very easy to manage if you don't have a life. But trying to do the two, that's when it gets to be a bit of a challenge. And the reason I want to really kind of focus on this a bit is more it's easy to identify within our own lives. But I think when we're working with clients, it's maybe a little bit more challenging to put yourself in their position. Oftentimes, like I said at the very beginning, depending on your career, depending on where you are, it's not always that easy. But getting into his four observations and how they actually, I think, work in conjunction with what we're doing here. The very first one is choosing the right career path. He makes a point of saying, and I agree with him 100%, that depending on your career, well, it's it's not always easy to engage with a young family based on your commitments. Some career paths, depending on what stage of life you're in, well, they're just not a good fit. If again you're trying to design your life in such a way that you have a young family and you're trying to engage with them on a regular basis, you're trying to do it all, so to speak. But it's important you identify that in your own life, but it's also extremely important, I feel, when you're working with clients. Because again, it's not always an easy solution, but sometimes hard decisions have to be made. And when they do an evaluation, and if they really feel their life is out of balance, and it is that important to them, well, they need to really take a good look at the career that they've chosen. Is it just a company? If they change companies, is that going to make a difference? Is there some upskilling that they can do to make things a little bit more balanced? Or perhaps they just need to downsize. Perhaps they just need to go ahead and leave that career temporarily for a period of time. Take something that might not make as much money for them, maybe a little bit further down the trough, so to speak. But that's going to provide them the lifestyle that they're looking for. But often it's a challenging it's a challenging decision that they have to make, and it's a decision you have to make if you're facing that challenge, where things just aren't working out. But a lot of times, again, they're just not a good fit. If you have a high demand, high profile career that requires you to work a lot of hours, different shifts, do a lot of traveling, it's going to be very difficult to have it all in the home life as well. But hopefully we can come to a nice middle ground here. That's what I suppose we're trying to identify. You know, the way he worded it was, a middle way of doing it. But I'd say a middle ground, so to speak. But a lot of times, well, you just have to have the courage to face the truth, be honest about it. And he identified a second one as well. Oh, there's Corinne, she must got booted out. His second observation is primarily that, well, it's up to you to fix it. It's up to your client to fix it. You can advise, you can make suggestions, but you're not going to be depending on the company to resolve it for you. You're definitely not going to be depending on the government to resolve it for you. It's up to the individual to go ahead and design their life, make some adjustments. Again, depending on their priorities. And it's not always an easy choice to make. But it's the truth. You have to be honest with yourself. You got to face the truth. And you have to accept the fact that it really is up to you to make those changes. So we also have to be very careful as far as, well, creating more rules, but the timing, the way he put it, his third observation, is the timing when you go ahead and you really judge how balanced things are. And we're going to kind of get into how all this fits in with our system a little bit more detailed. But when we talk about the timing, it's the stage of life that you're at. It has to do with your obligations. Again, if you have a young family and you have kids in school and you have a mortgage payment and you have, it's not always so easy to say that, well, that it's more important that I spend time with the kids. I'm going to pack it all in. It's not always that easy to do. You can, and there's people that do it, but again, you got to be careful on the timing. But there are things you can do, and that's primarily the fourth one. When you're taking a look at work-life balance, he tells the story about his son, the small little things that he did with his son that made a major, major difference. But we all can do that. When you're working, fine, you have to work 8 hours a day. You have to go ahead, you have to do the commute so oftentimes. And you might not always have time to spend as much of your day with your loved ones to do the things that you really want to do. But small things can really make a difference. Like, I often work with people and they'll be kind of talking about how, well, I made a phone call to my mother, or I sent a text to this person, or I sent a WhatsApp message to my son. But that's so easy to do. Yeah, it is easy. But oftentimes it's those small things that really make the big difference. So don't sell them short. Make sure that obviously you want to build on and you want to do as much as you can, but give yourself credit. And one thing I always want to talk about when we talk about work as well, we have to remember, for the majority of us, not all of us, depending on what stage of life you're in and everything, obviously, but the majority of us are working minimum 8 hours a day. That's a third of your day. And when you're looking at the point system, and this is what I always encourage people when I'm working with them, and I encourage the consultants that I work with when they're working with people just like yourselves, obviously, you want to make sure that you're giving enough credit for those 8 hours that you're working. If it's making up 1/3 of your day and you're giving yourself a quarter point for doing your job, well, often that's it's not really a good fit. Like, I work with people and they'll say, oh, I give myself a quarter point for my job. I give my quarter point for my budget, but I don't feel good about that because the budget is so easy. And I don't feel good about giving myself a quarter point just because I read a little bit. You have to remember, you're spending 8 hours a day on that job. You can give yourself, if you want, you can give yourself more than a quarter point. I often encourage people, if they're not able to do anything more, to break it down. And I've probably told this to some of you that I was working with, individually. if you're working with somebody or in your own life when you're designing your point system, if you're working 8 hours, well, you can give yourself a half a point for that. Give yourself a quarter point for the morning, for the AM hours. Give yourself or the first 4 hours. Give yourself another quarter point for the second 4 hours. I've encouraged people primarily if their job is very intense and they just really can't commit to doing anything else, to give themselves a full point. But really, you have to evaluate it though. When I talk about the quarter point for the first 4 hours and the second 4 hours, not just for showing up. I'm talking about, did you go there? Did you give 110%? Did you do a good job? Were you responsible? Were you productive? Did you go ahead and do the things that are going to advance you in that career, to get you to make more money, whatever the case may be? But again, these are things you need to take into consideration, and there are definitely things you have to take into consideration when you're advising the people that you're working with. So at this stage, what we're going to, I'm just conscious of time here. I want to make sure Sean, now I'm going to introduce Sean, but I know everybody here knows Sean. You know, Sean is a phenomenal guy, but I want to make sure he gets a proper introduction for the people who might not know Sean. The people who are going to be watching this at a later stage down the road. But Sean is one of our original consultants in the UK. And Sean, everybody knows how I feel about Sean. He's a phenomenal guy. He's very dedicated, a real team player, always willing to go above and beyond whatever needs to be done. So when I said there a couple weeks ago that what I'm looking for people to do is to step up and start helping out with the trainings for my benefit and for their own. Because I do think it's really important that everybody gets the opportunity and starts trying to work on their skills as far as doing presentations. Sean was right away, without hesitation, stepped in there. So I greatly appreciate that. Now, Sean has got a presentation that he wants to do about the importance of building strong, positive habits. And you know how I feel about habits. I think that's vital to everything that we're doing here at OneSource. Everything you do comes down to your habits and routines. The key to success is good habits and good routines. No question about that. So, Sean, what I'm going to do is, apologies, I should have already done this. I'm just going to stop the share for a moment, and I'm going to make you a co-presenter. And you can, I'm assuming you're all ready, Sean. You got your invitation. I'm not your invitation, your presentation all lined up and everything?
Yeah.
Good, man. So, okay, Sean, you've got control now. You should be able to go ahead and do the presentation. You can get rid of me there if you like. And
Anyway,
minimize
originally I was going to do this on atomic habits, and I do recommend, if you haven't read this book, get it, read it. It's a brilliant book. But I think after let's just say Patrick he actually asked me on Friday to do the presentation today. Thank you, Patrick. But he's right. We should all be stepping up and doing this more often. And I have said to him I was going to do this on numerous occasions, and I have backed out at the last minute. I do apologise for that, Patrick. He's not that I don't like doing presentations. I'm Mr. Presentation, but I like a PowerPoint presentation. I'm deaf by PowerPoint, and I don't want to do today is deaf by PowerPoint. I've actually only got 4 slides, so this is going to be interesting for me. It's stretching me outside of my own comfort zone as well. So I'm going to skip doing atomic habits, and I'm just going to do a general overview on habits today. So what are habits? Well, they're the small decisions that help you actually move forward with your goals, and they're a system you actually put in place. It's about a system of good habits that actually get you towards your goals. And the good thing about this, anyone could do it. We're all born with habits. Some of the habits we have at the moment is brushing your teeth. I hope we all do this at least once a day, if not twice a day. So once in the morning, once in the evening. We also we wash our hands every time we go to the toilet. Well, I hope you all do anyway. I know I do. I probably wash my hands 20, 30 times a day since COVID came in. But we all have good habits, we have bad habits. So it's all about building good habits, but not all habits are bad, not all bad habits are bad. I'm just going to tell you a little story now. Believe it or not, I'm actually in my 50s. I know I only look 21, 22, but yeah, I am in my 50s. And about 35 years ago, I suffered a stroke. So I was left paralyzed down the left-hand side for about 2, maybe 3 months. And I gradually got all of my use of everything, all my functions back, so I can walk, I can talk. I can talk for English, you may have gathered. But I still have limited use of my left arm and hand. So what I've been doing for 35 years, and it's only dawned on me when I was out walking this morning, I actually have a comfort blanket when I go walking. I have a jacket with me every time I go, and I just wrap it over my arm just when I'm walking. And I don't know why I do it, because I don't feel people staring at me. I don't feel conscious about it anymore. But then I was walking around and I realized I don't actually wear it, carry it, but for actually covering up. I would say it's not a disability, it's an ability that I've got that other people haven't got. I don't have full use of my left arm, but I've always had it there, and people think it's a comfort blanket. But when I was walking around today, I realized it's actually a good habit, because I live in God's country. I live in Cornwall. It's probably the nicest place in the world, but it rains a lot here, and you can have beautiful sunshine, 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30, it's raining like you're in you've just gone into the rainforest somewhere. And the reason I take my jacket, and it suddenly dawned on me, and I've always done this, is because I can put it on when it starts raining. I don't get too wet. So some bad habits are actually good for you. So don't think you're going to need to change all of your bad habits in one cycle. And also the other thing is, when you actually look at what you're doing, don't think you actually got to start 40, 50 new habits at the same time. Limit it to 2 or 3 and just get them going, and just do a little thing on each one. It's not the quality, it's not the quantity, it's about actually starting a habit, and actually starting a good habit and building on that habit. I'm sure Patrick's probably told you, and I've probably told a lot of people this before. I was about 4.5 stone heavier than what I am now. And I thought I could lose the weight overnight. And I thought, yeah, no problem. I go on a diet, I'll do that. But it didn't. It's all about little habits I put in place. It's about drinking water regularly. I drink water every time before I have a meal. It cuts down the amount of food I eat then. I count the calories, so I actually make sure I eat the right things now. I go walking about 2 hours a day. I struggled to get 15 minutes a day when I started. And I thought that it would happen overnight, but I would say building a habit and into walking, I had to combine it with another habit, which is listening to music and podcasts. Thank you for that idea, Patrick. That was brilliant. And I found that actually encouraged me to walk more often, because I get to listen to the podcast. I now actually just enjoy walking so much. I tend to just go walking and I don't listen to anything. I just take in the natural environment I'm in. And I actually do meditate sometimes. And I think Catherine, that was your idea. You said something a couple of weeks about that. But I have noticed that it does help, that once you've got a good habit, it becomes a habit. And habits can take any time from 21 days to 3 or 4 months to become a habit. Once it becomes a habit, move on to the next one, put something else in its place, and just keep building up on those habits. So you've got a system there will actually help you get to your goals a lot quicker. And all you're going to remember, habits actually starting down here, it'll actually build you up to success and where you want to go in life. I have to admit, I don't know about time at the moment, so
no, that's whenever you're ready, Sean.
No, I've still got plenty more to go on about it, but so it's all about actually making sure you've got the right habits in place, and you've got the balance of the right habits there to actually move you forward. And it's about enjoying the process as well. And now this is the bit Patrick's going to like. How does this tie into one source? Well, it's all about taking daily habits and having those habits there. And it's making sure that you know what you're doing. And that's why we have an accountability buddy, so they actually keep you on track. If you fall behind, they'll actually give you a bit of encouragement, or they'll ask you questions. You okay there? Is something going on there? Do you need some assistance? And that's the whole idea of having an accountability buddy. And that ties into a brilliant way of actually developing good habits and keeping them going and going. And the other thing is we have a dashboard because you always need to know exactly where you are with things. So it's great to see, well, that habit's working, that one's not. Maybe I need to adjust that slightly. And by having the dashboard, it actually gives you focus to look into where you need to take action to actually move on or change something so it does work. Because not everything works first time. And that's what you remember. You've got to keep on taking actions and you've got to keep on with the habits. And the habit can change and it should change. No habit should stay the same all the time, but unless you're brushing your teeth, and then going back to that, I hope it's more than twice a day or more than once a day. I think I said earlier, but I did mean twice a day because mornings and evenings are the minimum you should be brushing your teeth. But it's also, we go back to atomic habits, and also it's about compound effect. So it's the growth. So the more you do a habit, and even if you only do a little bit each day, it builds up and it builds up, and you'll notice the distance over a period of time. Like I said, I would say anything from 2 to 3 months is the best way of getting a habit in place. So it becomes a habit and it becomes second nature to you. You don't need to think about it anymore. You just do it. You just do it naturally. It's like I can't go for a day without going for a walk for at least 2 hours. I also know if I don't go for a walk, I feel guilty about it the following day and I have to do something else. And generally, like today, I probably walked for about 2.5 hours before most people got out of bed this morning. Apart from maybe you, James, because I know what you're like. You're even worse than me. There are some bad habits that you should really change, and I'm just talking because this is something I don't agree with. Smoking is a bad habit. Drugs are a bad habit. Smoking is a really bad habit because you become a passive smoker. And I should know because I was a smoker, and I've given up for like 23 years now, 24 years. I only smoked for about a decade and a half, but that was long enough, and I could never go back to it now. It stinks, it's horrible, and it shouldn't do. But certain habits, like I said, certain habits are good. Exercise is a good habit, but you can overdo a good habit as well. So you've got to do it within limitations as well. And I think that's probably me for the moment. I could probably talk. I got loads more to talk about, but I was going to get sidetracked and go on to why it helps your motivation and so forth.
No, that was fantastic, Sean. No, I appreciate that very, very much. So well done, well done. Look, just a few comments on that. The first thing is you made a very good point at the beginning. You talked about the fact that primarily you wanted to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
I think
I could do a PowerPoint presentation and I could keep you all engaged here. I did think about putting a video in and taking up 15 minutes of people's time and then doing 5 minutes either side just on stats, but that isn't what I wanted to do today.
yeah,
I
but
do
no,
apologize if I talk a bit fast, but that's me. That's natural.
no, I think you did a great job. And again, I think it's really important that we all, every one of us, get out of our comfort zone. So, and I respect you for doing that. And also, too, the one thing I'll say about Sean, and I know Sean for a while now, the last year and a half, whatever, we've been working together very closely because I work with Sean. As far as I'm Sean's joint venture partner. I'm his consultant, you could say. So we get together every week, and I've been with Sean since day one, watching his progress. And he's right about the habits. Every single thing, every success that Sean has had comes down to his habits. Everything from his weight loss to the business that he's building here now to his balance on his dashboard. Sean is probably the most consistent person I know on everything he does within our organization, within the system. I check his dashboard every day, just about. Always has the details in there. Always, and he even goes above and beyond putting in special notes. He always records how many steps he takes. He records how many calories he takes. He records how much money that he spends every day within his budget. He takes it very seriously, but it's a habit for him at this stage. Like I remember when Sean first started walking, he started out You correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but I think it was about 6,000 steps. And you got into the habit of that, and now you're up to, I think you're averaging about 12,000 steps, sometimes much more every day. You built on it because you did it consistent. Same with the calories. Same as most of us do with calories. You start at wherever you're at. You get in the habit of tracking your calories. You created that habit, then you gradually brought them down. But you've made some major changes in your life. And I really do. I credit the greater majority of all the success you've had in this to your habits. So I think that was a really good choice of presentations for you to do it on habits, because I really do. I think every day, all the successes you have and within your personal development comes from those habits that you've built. So what I'm going to do now is, I suppose I don't really need to share my screen, but I can, but I don't think I really have too many more slides left, but might as well, I suppose. The primary, the last one that I have is this one here. So who's next? That's my question to everybody here. I've been saying it now for a while, and I am going to start putting more pressure because I would like to see some more people presenting. So whoever, whether you're here, you're watching this live, or you're here and you're watching it on the recording, get hold of me, volunteer. Do a presentation. It doesn't
Okay, I
matter.
can do it next week.
Fantastic. So get hold of me after
Okay.
and drop me a message. Let me know what you want to do it on.
Okay.
And yeah, but I think that's great. Fair dues to you. I think that's amazing.
You point the finger at me today, and I got an idea
Yeah, I
halfway through,
figured
so
that
I
would-
can do it.
I took advantage of that. When the opportunity rose, I made sure I jumped on it to put a bit of pressure on you. So good for you, Kinga. I appreciate that greatly. And then other people get in touch, and we'll go ahead. And we don't have to do it every week, but I would like to at least a couple times a month. I can always do the first bits, and you can jump in the second bit and do your 15, 20 minutes till everybody's comfortable. But I think it's good for the group, and I think it's good for your personal development. And as Sean says, I think it's really good because you will get out of your comfort zone. So look, guys, other than that, we'll wrap it up. I really appreciate everything. And special thanks to Sean. I really do appreciate that, Sean. Is getting the ball going, and look at, you got King already jumping in. So that's a good thing. So questions, comments, concerns, I'll be available. Kinga, you get hold of me when you're ready, either after this or over the next day or two, whatever. Let me know what you want to do your presentation on. Anybody else who's interested in doing one, please get hold. We'll get you slotted in. And other than that, I hope everybody has a great night, and we will see you all soon. All right, guys, mind yourselves. Thanks for coming.